So as Sebastian Vettel is listening to Deutschland Light on the podium in Monaco, the pre-race festivities are well underway, 4,500 miles away in Speedway, Indiana, the most famous oval track on the planet, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It is time for the 95th running of the Indianapolis 500, sanctioned, of course, by the IZOD IndyCar Series. It is indeed the very first time we have done an IndyCar race here on the Retro Racing Roundup, much like Formula One. Very, very excited for this. The event is celebrating its centennial, actually. This is the 95th race, but the first race in Indianapolis 500, the 500-mile sweepstakes, if you will, was held in 1911. So this is a centennial. Of course, they had to miss 5 Indy 500s because of World War I and World War II. Apparently, those were more important, I guess. I don't really know. Of course, in a typical month of May, there are so many stories, so many storylines that you need to keep rolling around through the folds of your brain. 2011 was not any different. So much shit going on, you could basically do your own separate 2 or 3 hour video about it, but I will do my best to try and consolidate it into a nice tight window here. There are a few big stories rolling around heading into the 2011 Indy 500. First of all, a lot of rumors swirling about one of the worst kept secrets and most obvious moves in history. Is this Danica Patrick's final Indianapolis 500? Long story short, no. But is she moving to NASCAR full-time after 2011? The answer there is yes. And they could have just said that, but no, we got to milk this for every freaking drop. We got to milk it for every drop here. Because it is important, but also it's annoying. So we'll actually head to Indianapolis now, where there are 40 cars attempting to make the show here. Among them is Dan Weldon, who, despite being an IndyCar champion, a winner of the Indianapolis 500, the driver who has finished second in the last 2 consecutive Indianapolis 500s as well, he's not really given a whole lot of airtime heading into the race. Why is that? Well, he has lost his ride that he's had the last 2 years in the Indy 500, and his full-time ride as well with Panther Racing, due to a lack of sponsorship, despite the fact that National Guard would stay on the car after he left. Weldon would actually end up suing Panther Racing for owed wages late in 2010, and they would settle out of court in October. But Weldon could not find a full-time ride in 2011, so he went to his friend Brian Herta and asked if they could put something together. They ended up slapping together a car quite literally on a chassis that was built 8 years before the race. Yeah, so maybe that's why Weldon isn't getting any second looks, at least not yet. Rookie driver Charlie Kimball is looking to start his first Indianapolis 500 and in the process potentially become the first driver to ever run a 500-mile race with diabetes. Seriously, poor Charlie Kimball could never quite escape the whole diabetes thing his entire career, and it is laid on so thick on the broadcast. It is borderline cringeworthy. I get that it's important, and it is important. But I mean, Charlie, I'm sure, likes to do other things in his life than have diabetes. So I think throughout the entire tenure of his career, they probably could have done a better job of showcasing, Charlie Kimball, the person, not Charlie Kimball, the diabetic. But you'll have that, I guess. During a practice session, Simona De Silvestro has a horrendous crash that sees her get up and into the catch fence and catch on fire. She will end up with second-degree burns on her hands, but will actually power through and qualify into the Indy 500, which is exceptional. In fact, she will end up being one of 4 female drivers in the 500 this year, which is still a record as of 2023. Speaking of trying to qualify in, 500 rookie Scott Speed, who is still doing full-time NASCAR at this point, is looking to do just that, qualify in. However, it is painfully obvious that he is just not quite with the program here, despite his best efforts. So Dragon Racing, the team he is driving for, like to swap him out on qualifying day with Patrick Carpentier, and Patrick will immediately crash in practice, and the team will withdraw the car. Oh my God, that's awful. And one final piece of bump day drama as one of the long shot championship favorites, Ryan Hunter-Reay, driving for Andretti Autosport, fails to qualify. So you would think that is the end of the story, but no, Andretti will actually buy out A.J. Foyt's entry for Bruno Giancara, who qualified in 19th. Unfortunately, Giancara would never race in the Indy 500 again after this. In fact, he would only make one more career IndyCar start at all. It would be at Baltimore in the next season in 2012. So, way to go, Andretti, for the absolute buzzkill there for Bruno. Other DNQs were Sebastian Saavedra, Ho Pin Tung, Rafael Matos, James Jakes, and Mike Conway, who, of course, had that massive accident in the 2010 running of the Indy 500, and he ended up missing the entire back half of the season as a result of it. So he gets no redemption at Indianapolis in 2011. Your front row is all international with Oriol Servia, who is having a career year up to this point and will continue to do so after today. On the outside of the front row, the 2008 Indy 500 winner Scott Dixon is in the middle, and the unlikely pole sitter, journeyman driver French-Canadian Alex Tagliani, driving for Sam Schmidt Motorsports. Of course, Schmidt, former driver who was paralyzed in a testing crash, but went straight into car ownership in RAL. He has yet to claim victory as a car owner. He has 3.5 chances to do that today, as Jay Howard, Townsend Bell were both flying the Schmidt Motorsports banner, and Brian Herta's operation with Dan Weldon is actually in partnership with Sam Schmidt Motorsports. So he sort of got like a step driver thing going on with Dan Weldon. Like,
what are you doing, step driver?
okay, sorry. One of my favorite parts of Indy 500's gone by is listening to Jim Nabors sing Back Home Again in Indiana. It never gets old, does it? With the opening ceremonies out of the way, we send it up to the ABC booth where Marty Reed is anchoring the broadcast team of two veteran drivers that, when I close my eyes, I cannot tell who is talking. It's Eddie Cheever and Scott Goodyear. Now, don't get me wrong, they're both very good, but I don't know who is talking in the same way that a lifelong IndyCar fan might turn on an ESPN broadcast from around this time for a NASCAR race and not know if it was Dale Jarrett or Andy Petrie talking, since they're both tenor-ranged Southern gentlemen. You catch my drift here? Here we go, 200 laps, 500 miles for the second leg of this Memorial Day special. And it is the biggest race of all, the Indianapolis 500. Scott Dixon will immediately move up into the lead after Tagliani has to check up for jumping a little bit too early. Tagliani will slip back to third and then will launch a successful bid to get back up to second on lap number 3. And you remember that really old car Dan Weldon is driving? Oh yeah, he qualified in 6th, by the way. He is already up into the mix in 4th place here. On lap number 5, Simona Di Silvestro will pit after hitting the wall. Of course, that's not captured on camera, though. Lap number 6, Vitor Meira will get passed up by John Andretti, who is driving a Richard Petty-themed car. That's pretty cool. Come to think of it here, he's actually running the number 43. Wait a second, is Richard Petty an IndyCar owner? When the hell did that happen? Apparently, John and Richard have been teaming up for the last few Indy 500s. In fact, this is their third in a row, with Richard being listed as the car owner, or rather the co-owner, for this car with Andretti Autosport. Sadly, this would be John's last Indy 500 before his retirement and his eventual early passing due to colon cancer. A reminder for everybody out there, regardless of age or gender, to be sure to get screened for colon cancer so you can catch it early. While we're getting a report on Simona Di Silvestro on lap number 8, Alex Tagliani has run down and passed Scott Dixon for the lead. 2 laps later, Weldon passes Servia for the 3rd position, and Servia will then get passed by Dario Franchitti for 4th. Under the commercial break, Townsend Bell moves himself up to 3rd. We jump ahead to lap 21, and you hate to see Paul Tracy in the pits, gosh darn it, after he has tagged the wall. As we're getting a replay of Tracy's brush, however, Takumo Sato will one-up Tracy and slam the wall, bringing out our first caution of the day. Here come the first round of pit stops. Tagliani wins the race off pit road after taking no adjustments, and it looks like a slight air pressure change to the left rear tire for Will Power. This is the first Indy 500 with double file restarts, which is not popular with the drivers, but IndyCar won't be listening to driver concerns until after October. Case in point, we immediately crash after taking the green flag here. EJ Viso gets caught out on the outside of 3 wide, and he is junked. Restart on lap 34, much better. Tagliani is going to sneak through to the lead, and Dario Franchitti makes the move to 4th on Dan Weldon. Before the end of the lap, Dixon will move back up to the lead. After this, Marty Reed says that there has been a lead change on every single lap, which is just not even remotely true. It's not even close. Franchitti closes the gap to Tagliani quickly, and the two-time Indy 500 winner will make the pass on lap 44. As soon as he does, Weldon moves up to third on Tagliani. Not a whole lot of movement in this part of the race, but Simona De Silvestro, after the damage she suffered earlier, has been asked to retire the car. She will pull it in on lap 44. We jump ahead to lap 60, where Scott Dixon is pitting from the lead. Tony Kanaan has to avoid a car on pit road and is all out of sorts. Just as he gets situated in his box, the caution flies for another unsecured tire, this time coming off of the right rear of Jay Howard, who is on the pit-out road. My ultimate pet peeve is missing the restart while we are on commercial. Everybody should have been fired. Every single person. We are almost into turn 3 when we come back live. The race leader is Dario Franchitti, who I think got away with not being penalized for entering a closed pit. But I digress. Franchitti's time out front is done for the time being, though, as Scott Dixon is going to retake the top spot. We jump now to lap 78, and Ryan Hunter-Reay has fallen off the pace after tagging the wall into turn number 3, but he stays out after a quick shakedown. Again, not a lot happening here the next handful of laps. Crucially, however, in the next few laps, the wind shifts and picks up dramatically. There are wind gusts registered over 20 miles an hour. We're going to skip ahead now to lap 98, where fittingly the 98 of Dan Weldon has hit pit road. Scott Dixon will follow him in on lap number 100, giving the lead back to Dario Speedwagon at the halfway mark of the race. Dixon will stall it out a bit on pit exit, and for the second time in a row as Franchitti is entering pit road, the caution flag will fly. In that 20-plus mile-an-hour gusty wind zone, rookie James Hinchcliffe has slammed the wall and destroyed the car, bringing out the caution for the third time. A fair amount of the drivers who have been caught out again by this caution will hit pit road. They're led on a pit road by the rookie driver who took over Dan Weldon's seat at Panther Racing, J.R. Hildebrandt. J.R. was leading when the caution came out, and he leads the drivers off of pit road as well. We get an interview with Brent Musburger and Dick Haroon, who is the 96-year-old son of the winner of the very first Indy 500, Ray Haroon. Pretty cool that Dick was still around to have this little chat here. You're back to Green Flag Racing here on lap 108, and we are immediately 4 wide in the middle of the pack. Jesus, they almost get into the pit attenuator there. Dario Franchitti is showing the way. On lap 111, Elio Castroneves makes a pass for the lead. He's unlapped himself. It has been a very mad day for the Team Penske group, but at least he has the pace to make it up front and make a pass. 2 laps later, Oriol Servia will make a pass to move up to the lead as we go to commercial. When we come back, we get a report on Danica Patrick, who has been hung out twice by the cautions before the pit stops. Brent Musburger makes a pretty good argument here.
She is somebody, of course.
A report from Jamie Little on Alex Tagliani, who has dropped outside of the top 10. He has been overheating, and on the last stop, his team pulled off an aero inlet to try and keep the car cool. Evidently, these cars don't like it when you just start ripping shit off of them. Who would have guessed? On lap 131, Dario Franchitti gets back to the lead, getting around Oriol Servia. Marco Andretti has now worked his way into the top 5 as well, up to P4. Franchitti shows just how off the pace Tagliani is as he moves past him like he's standing still on lap 135. Next lap around, Dan Weldon will hit pit road and stall his car trying to leave pit road, so that will cost him an extra couple of seconds. Servia will hit his box this time by and has a flawless stop. This will bring Franchitti in from the lead, and this time the caution does not come out as Dario hits pit road. With 62 laps to go, J.R. Hildebrandt is the race leader, at least for another lap. Hildebrandt will now pit and give the lead to Bertrand Baguette, which still makes me chuckle. I am a child. Baguette will give up the lead, and we finally get a complete green flag pit cycle. Dario Franchitti is the leader once again. Lap 140, though, the caution is back out, and the day is over for Alex Tagliani after he smokes the wall at a turn 4. You're starting to see a pattern here where if you find your way to the outside line and nose up into the gray just a little bit, it's going to become instant pain. Yeah, but I'm sure that is probably the last time this is going to happen in this race. It's probably not going to happen again. I can't imagine that it would happen even one more time. Marty Reed says that the day is over for Sam Schmidt, despite the fact that he still has 2 cars and a step car in the race. Good job. Some stayers, some takers here under the caution, the most notable of which is Marco Andretti for the takers. The field doubles up and hits the gas. Well, most of them do anyway. Oriol Servia has stacked up most of the field here. Good Lord, they are all over the place for the next lap and a half or so as Dario tries his hardest to get away, leading on lap 157. A lap later, we get a 2-car tangle here with Ryan Briscoe and Townsend Bell crashing out. And Elio Castroneves, I believe, hits some of the debris and is going to lose his right rear tire as a result. So that crash pretty much does end Team Penske for the rest of the day. Coming to the 1 to go, under this caution, we have several drivers duck onto pit road here. And we are on the very, 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 very extreme edge of the pit window here. Some of the brave souls who are trying to stretch this fuel to the end. Dario Franchitti, who was leading, and J.R. Hildebrand. Restart on lap 166. Graham Rahal makes quick work of Oriol Servia to take the lead at Indianapolis for the first time in his career. Dan Weldon is going to take the 5th place away from Tony Kanaan on lap 167. Lap 170, here comes Scott Dixon up to 2nd, and Servia continues to slide as Tony Kanaan is now moved up to 3rd after re-overtaking Dan Weldon. Lap 172, Scott Dixon makes the 19th lead change of the race. During the break, Tony Kanaan will move up to 2nd. Danica Patrick, meanwhile, has moved up to the 6th position. Man, big props to ABC here. They almost showed some of this race here today. I mean, as much as we bitch and moan about NASCAR on Fox, this broadcast has been, I want to say, 10 times worse than your average NASCAR on Fox broadcast. It's bad. It's pretty bad. Case in point, we come back from break and we are on air for 49 seconds. We are inside of 30 laps to go. What is happening? Back from break now, and the final pit stops for drivers who didn't pit under the last caution are now underway. Dixon, Servia, and Weldon have all pit with 22 laps to go. This hands the lead over to Danica Patrick, who will still need a pit stop. But this is the second and final time that she has taken the lead at Indianapolis. That is a cool moment for sure. Bertrand Baguette is trying to track her down for the lead. He also needs to pit himself, but he is digging hard, and he takes the top spot with 12 laps to go. Meanwhile, while these drivers are pushing hard and getting ready to pit, Dario Franchitti has slowed considerably, trying to save as much fuel as possible. Danica will pit from 2nd with 10 laps to go. This will move Dario up to 2nd and J.R. Hildebrand to 3rd. Again, they are both trying to save fuel, at least theoretically, because Dario's last lap was 5 miles an hour faster than Bertrand Baguette's. But 2 laps later, Franchitti's pace has now slowed to 208 miles an hour, and he knows he is in big trouble. Hildebrand is closing in for 2nd, and Baguette is still showing the way. 5 to go now. Baguette has pulled out to a massive 10-second lead here, as Dario is barely making minimum speed. 4 to go now. Hildebrand will pass Dario Franchitti for 2nd, and of course it's off camera, and just as he does, Baguette pits from the lead, which gives the top spot to J.R. Hildebrand, the rookie, driving the car that has finished 2nd in the last 2 Indy 500s in a row. Hildebrand is saving fuel up front, and Franchitti has now slipped all the way back to 4th, which is a complete disaster for that team. Scott Dixon is in 2nd, but he is having to try and fight off Dan Weldon, as Hildebrand is now approaching the white flag. And I mean, this commentary team, especially with the benefit of hindsight, they are laying on jinx after jinx after jinx here. Hildebrand heads through turn 4, moves high to get around Charlie Kimball, and you have got to be kidding me. He is in the wall at full speed. He keeps it rolling, but the hit is severe enough to absolutely kill his momentum, and who goes flying by but the former driver of the Panther Racing number 4, Dan fucking Weldon. Dan is the man for the 2nd time at the Indianapolis 500. Hildebrand will cross in 2nd, but nobody can possibly imagine the complex emotions that he has to be feeling in the cockpit of that car as it comes to rest in turn number 1. Brian Herta has a great interview on pit road as Weldon is heading to victory lane. John Barnes gives the most reasonable and level-headed interview I have ever seen after one of the most iconic moments in sports history just occurred, and he happened to be on the wrong side of it as well. So well done for Mr. Barnes. And then we get to victory lane. Susie Weldon is there to greet him, as are some teammates and associates. It is an understandably emotional victory lane as Dan Weldon just took an 8-year-old chassis to victory lane on a last-minute Hail Mary deal. He dedicated the victory to his mother, who was not well enough to travel as she had been recently diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I think most of us know where the story goes after this, but I think it goes hand in hand with the 2011 Indianapolis 500. The story can't properly be told without it, unfortunately. Weldon, who, remember, is not full-time before the Indianapolis 500, he will not be full-time afterwards. He will sign on for 2 races at the end of the season with Sam Schmidt, actually, driving the car that Alex Tagliani drove. The 77 car. He will finish in 14th at Kentucky in the penultimate race, and then he'll take the green at Las Vegas. And early in that race, he will be involved in an accident, and he dies. Dan Weldon dies at the age of 33 in the prime of his career, just months removed from winning one of the biggest sporting events in the world. And he's dead. I've had it suggested that I should cover the IZOD IndyCar Championship on the Roundup before. It won't happen. This is as close as you'll get. There are more comprehensive videos that do a good job of covering the event. The Roundup, I think, is to glorify good races or to deconstruct, like funny bad races. Like the IZOD IndyCar Championship is awful. It's as bad as it gets, really. I'll leave my thoughts on Dan Weldon like this. His story in 2011, I guess his story as a person, is the epitome of the highs and lows of motorsports. You can point fingers, you can gnash teeth at the situation all you want, you could play the blame game, you could do whatever, but at the end of the day, none of that fucking matters. Because Dan Weldon is dead, and a wife and 2 sons are without their husband and father, respectively, and that is just so above motorsports. It's so much more important than that, and just so much more sad. But at least we have this. We have the 2011 Indianapolis 500 to look back on and celebrate and remember the big white toothy grin of Dan Weldon and his family celebrating all together. So that's just look back and be happy that we got that. All right, so I definitely didn't have to re-record the entire last 45 minutes of this because of an audio issue or anything. No. That would be ridiculous. That would be crazy. Definitely not recording this the day after I recorded the first half of this video. That would be insane. Let's go back through the rating for the 2011 Indianapolis 500. The racing, pretty good. 7.5 out of 10. Not a whole lot to say there. What I do have something to say about is the finish here, gamers. Are you ready for this? Because for the very first time in retro racing Roundup history, we've got the perfect 10. The perfect 10 on the finish, ladies and gentlemen. One of the most iconic race finishes in motorsports history for all the wrong reasons, yes. But the perfect score is there. There will be other 10s in the finish category. There will be other 10s in other categories, but this will always be the first, and it's very cool. Memorability, I don't want to whore out the 10s here, and I don't think this is quite deserving of a 10 either. I will move this down to a 9 because it's really only the one moment from this race that sort of gets replayed. Not even any of the crashes really from this race make the rounds outside of the one crash. So a 9 out of 10 for memorability here. And historical significance, it's the Indianapolis 500. It's Dan Weldon's final career victory, final Indy 500 victory. So it's a 9. And I don't think I really have to elaborate on it that much more either. That's a big, big score. It's a big, big score. A big, 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 big score. 35.5, which makes this the top race, I believe, of all time on the Retro Racing Roundup. Pretty good for the 2011 Indianapolis 500-mile sweepstakes race. But we still have one more race to go here, folks. We got one more race to go here, laddie. Is that going to top the Indianapolis 500? No, it's not, but we're going to do it anyway. We are now moving over to Concord, North Carolina, where Charlotte Motor Speedway is hosting the 52nd annual Coca-Cola 600, FKA the World 600. It is the 12th race on the calendar for the 2011 NASCAR Sprint Cup season. I don't know if you've noticed, if you're familiar with the Retro Racing Roundup series, this is edition number 7. We've already done 2 2011 Cup Series races. They are right down here. So I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail here because I've already talked about a lot of the context in and throughout the 2011 Cup Series season. But I will touch on a few points here, most notably, of course, the All-Star race, which was always held the week before the Coke 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. It was won by Carl Edwards. Carl Edwards was wicked fast in the All-Star race, and then he went and celebrated a little bit too hard in the infield and tore up that car when he touched grass, as the kids would say. So the team had to do a lot of work to that car because it's his primary for the Coke 600. Spoiler alert, this car is still pretty fast. Also of note, 2011 Daytona 500 winner and rookie Trevor Bayne was scheduled to run the Coca-Cola 600 here tonight, but he is out. He had a spider bite when he was at Texas about 3 weeks before this, and the symptoms are still lingering, he thinks anyway, from the spider bite. I should point out as well, with the benefit of hindsight, we now know, unfortunately, that Trevor Bayne has multiple sclerosis, and he will be officially diagnosed with MS, I believe, 2 years after this, sometime in 2013. So it could possibly be due to this. But Trevor Bayne will be sitting out tonight's race, and instead in the Wood Brothers 21 will be the Sprint Cup Series debut of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. That is right, Stenhouse in the Wood Brothers 21, and you'll see him a few different times here tonight. He is not going to have a quiet debut. Also of note, Paul Menard, who we have celebrated here in 2011 on this channel, he has 20 stitches in his right foot here. He was fishing off of his dock at home and stepped on a big old piece of steel and ripped his foot open. But that really didn't slow him down any. In fact, he was fastest in final practice. All right, let's not waste any more time. Leading the field to green here with his second career pole is Brad Keselowski, and he has A.J. Allmendinger starting to his outside. As the cars roll off of pit road, Carl Edwards decides to ignore Darrell Waltrip in the Fox booth.
See if we can dial up old Carl Edwards. Hey, Carl, it's DW. Got a copy, buddy? Second. Say, roll, what? Whoa, trouble.
And yes, I should point out as well, we are back on Fox. It's Mike Joy, Larry Mack, and DW. The goated booth trio, I won't hear it. Another fun fact, Dale Earnhardt Jr. is apparently starting this race with 80 ounces of Gatorade in the car. That is 5 pounds of Gatorade. That is a lot. It's NASCAR's longest race, 400 laps, 600 miles, and it is underway at Charlotte to close out Memorial Day 2011. Allmendinger slips back to third straight away as Carl Edwards moves up and starts to close in on Keselowski for the lead. Lap 3, and Ricky Stenhouse is inside the top 10, but he will slide up the track and smack the wall. He will start to fade away pretty quick after this. 3 laps later, Mike Skinner in a start and park gets up and into the wall after starting in the back. He will swiftly retire after this. Lap 8, and Edwards will make quick work of Keselowski, moving himself up to the lead. Things stay like this until we get to lap 25 when A.J. Allmendinger gets around Brad Keselowski for second. In the space in the middle here, we lose 3 of the start and park drivers, J.J. Yaley, David Stremme, and front row Joe Nemechek. It's worth pointing out, since this is a Triple Dipper episode, on lap 29 we get a look at Juan Pablo Montoya. They rightly point out that he has won 2 legs in the Memorial Day Triple before at Monaco and Indy, but he had yet to go to victory lane at Charlotte. Unfortunately, he will never pull it off during his Cup Series career. I can't imagine that we will ever see anybody get it done. It would be incredible, though. Maybe Daniel Ricciardo can do it one day. I mean, I can only hope at this point. And if you're curious, Tony Stewart is carrying a thermometer in his car. It is currently 134 degrees in the cockpit. It will climb as high as 137. No, thank you, Satan. And now when I tell you that Greg Biffle is starting to have a cool box failure, you should know that Greg Biffle might be in some serious trouble here. Lap 41, and Jamie McMurray is going to pit here to take a wild setup swing on the 1 car. This will trigger a bit of an avalanche onto pit road across the next 5 laps or so. A.J. Allmendinger comes in from second on lap 44. Edwards will stay out a little bit longer than everybody else, pitting on lap 46. He asks for no changes and receives none. Allmendinger cycles out to the lead since he pit a few laps earlier than Edwards, but cousin Carl isn't too far behind Allmendinger here. On lap 53 during the commercial, Carl will get back around AJ for the lead. On lap 58, Matt Kenseth says he needs to come in because he has a vibration. Side note, does anybody remember this Jeremiah Weed livery for Matt Kenseth? Because I sure do not. Keeping our eyes on Dale Jr., no particular reason. He is currently up 15 spots since the start of the race inside of the top 10. We go to break and come back on lap 71, where Denny Hamlin has gotten around A.J. Allmendinger for second and is trying to track down Carl for the lead, but he will catch him rapidly on lap 75, only because we are now under caution for the first time. Yes, the phantom debris caution, as is tradition in 2011. Fox do something here that I don't ever remember anybody doing before, which is a crank it up on the pit stops. They're doing this to tout the fact that they won the Sports Emmy for sound mixing this year. But this round of pit stops in particular is won by Jefferson B. Burton, who takes 2 tires. Poor old Greg Biffle is still quite literally baking in the 16 mobile oven. The team couldn't remove the cool box unit from his backup car in time to swap it out under the caution here. So what they did instead was go find a backup driver, find David Stremme, and they put him on standby in case Greg decides to throw in the towel here, understandably. Restart on lap 80. Burton hangs on to the lead, and Hamlin covers off Edwards for second. However, on the next time by, Hamlin will overtake Burton for the lead, and Jeff will begin to slide backwards here in a hurry. Edwards slips up a little bit trying to work on Burton. That'll open the door for good old 5-time Jimmy Johnson, who has apparently just been named Forbes' most influential athlete of 2011. Wonder how much he had to pay for that. Matt Kenseth will also pass his teammate Carl Edwards before all 3 of them will pass Jeff Burton. By lap 90, Johnson is hounding Hamlin for the lead. We go to commercial on lap 94 and come back under the second caution of the day as Bobby Labonte has a little bitty solo baby, little spin baby out of turn number 4. Pit stops and Carl is begging for some changes because he can't turn the car. A lot more 2-tire stops this time. David Reagan will win the race off of pit road. I've mentioned how David Reagan's 2011 season would end up, but he's actually running pretty strong at this point in the year. He actually won one of the All-Star Open segments the week before this, and had just scored his first career pole a couple of weeks back at Texas. So it's not a total shock around this time in 2011 to see the UPS number 6 towards the front. Reagan will get away nicely on this lap 104 restart, just over a quarter of the way now through the Coke 600. Lap 108, and Kenseth has run down his teammate David Reagan for the top spot. Kenseth won the previous day's Nationwide Series race, and he's found his way back up to the front again on Sunday. On lap 117, Denny Hamlin will pass David Reagan for second. 2 tires is seeming to be a good short-run option here, but it is not worth it in the long run. Lap 126, and Greg Biffle seems a little hot.
How stupid are we? I don't even know what you're doing. You guys are something else. I mean, unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Jump ahead to lap 141, and if you remember in the Brickyard 400 video, I mentioned that Toyota had been having some engine failures. Well, one driver thinks he's in the middle of one right now, and unfortunately, it is Denny Hamlin who is riding in third. We'll wait to see if he is right. Next lap, a couple of 2-tire takers hit the pit road here, led by David Rudiman. Matt Kenseth leads by 8 seconds. Lap 160, and Kurt Busch says he has a loose left rear wheel and will hit pit road from the top 5. He comes out just ahead of Matt Kenseth, but is 1 lap down. Moving ahead now to caution number 3, which will come out on lap 171, again for debris, this time a beverage can on the track, but said can is never shown. LOL. Regan Smith will get the free pass as a result. Pit road is open, and here comes just about everybody. 2 tires again for some of the gamblers, and Marcus Ambrose wins the race off of pit road. Crikey! He lines up next to Jamie McMurray on the front row for the restart here on lap 176. As these two work side by side at a turn number 4, Ambrose will make a great save here, but that will give up the lead to Jamie McMurray. Denny Hamlin isn't seeming to have any engine problems anymore as he motors past Kevin Harvick. Hamlin will take Montoya and Menard 3 wide next time around. Kenseth has caught Jamie Mack for the lead on lap 181, and just as Kenseth is moving past McMurray for the top spot, the Ganassi 1 car throws a rod and is done for the day. Fun fact, depending on who you are, I guess, that is the 6th ECR engine failure of 2011. Yeesh. Spectacular timing, but a terrible result. 4th caution of the day, and I firmly blame NASCAR for causing the first caution themselves because the cautions have been breeding like rabbits since then, and that trend, sadly, is here to stay. Pit road is closed, but goddamn it if Greg Biffle is finally going to get his cool box changed out after almost 200 laps. Clint Bowyer is having to make a camber adjustment after he just chewed through some brake ducting, so the hood is up on the 33 car. Kenseth and Ambrose lead 10 other drivers who did not pit under the yellow, and the caution will immediately fly again on lap 188 as Casey Mears blows the left rear tire after contact with Landon Castle. Under the caution, we get an interview with Jamie McMurray, who mentions the fact that Tracker Boats agreed to remove their decals from his car this week in order to put a tornado relief charity on the car. We are just a couple of weeks removed from the horrendous F5 tornado in Joplin, Missouri. Absolutely destructive, and unfortunately Joplin, Missouri is Jamie McMurray's hometown. So he says that he hopes him getting up front and leading a few laps here tonight put a couple of smiles on some faces back home. Approaching halfway, and the sun is now down, but some of that cloud cover that hung over Indianapolis all day, and now we restart the race immediately. Marcos Ambrose rockets to the lead from the outside. Awesome to see Marcos leading on an oval on outright pace alone. Don't get to see it a whole lot. Kenseth will spoil the party for Marcos on lap 199, however. 17 lead changes at the halfway mark of the race. Lap 220, and Kevin Harvick will be the first driver to pit road here. AJ Allmendinger has gotten back up to 4th, and he will now be the second driver to pit. And AJ pitting will tip the scales as just about everybody will be down pit road here in the next few laps. Crucially, Marcus Ambrose will be the first of the top 3 onto pit road, with Kenseth and Edwards both pitting on the next lap. Tony Stewart is one of the drivers that will go long here on this stint, so Stewart is the leader here on lap 230, but behind him, Marcus Ambrose, pitting a lap earlier than Kenseth, has gotten him out ahead of the 17. Stewart pits on lap 232, and as he does, Mike Bliss runs the car out of gas, can't quite make it back onto pit road, so the caution will fly again for the 6th time already. Pretty much everybody hits pit road despite the fact that they were just there, but a lot of right side tires and top-offs here for the people on pit road. That'll set us up for a restart on lap 240 with Ambrose and Busch. Kyle Busch, that is, leading the field to green. Ambrose leads across the line on 241, but on lap 242 on Wisconsin, I think anyway, Paul Menard goes around by himself, and as he is coming back down the track, Brian Vickers ARCA breaks the shit out of Martin Truex, and both of these gentlemen are out of contention tonight. Paul Menard will keep on trucking, however. Marcus Ambrose again elects the outside for the restart against Kyle Busch, and this time it is not going to work as Kyle Busch moves up to the lead on lap 246. Lap 247, and look at this conveyor belt of chaos in the midfield. Switching to laps to go now, 124 to be exact, and David Ragan and Kyle Busch pit from the top three. Marcus Ambrose pits as well, giving the lead now to Matt Kenseth. We don't quite make it all the way through the pit cycle here before the caution flag will fly again, leaving a few stragglers out and in primo positions, including Jeff Gordon. Caution is actually for debris, as it was either David Gilliland or Travis Kvapil apparently dropping some parts and pieces, although again, no debris is ever shown at any point. 114 laps to go with Kyle Busch in control here. Ambrose to his outside, and David Ragan was going to stack up most of the field here on the restart, but everybody does a pretty good job of not crashing. 2 laps after this, David Starr will crash, and he will absolutely demolish the wall in the tri-oval, and it's caution number 9. Can we get some laps in here, fellas, please? 105 to go now. Restart again. And it's still Kyle Busch and Marcos Ambrose on the front row. Busch yards the field through the first 2 turns. But we can, again, only manage 2 more laps before the caution will fly for the 10th time. This time it's Landon Castle. Now confirming that there was something to the story a little bit earlier. Denny Hamlin will pit to replace his carburetor. Alrighty, maybe we could get some laps in on this restart. Ha, just kidding. Why did I even ask? Mark Martin, David Gilliland, Ryan Newman, all done. Caution number 11. The majority of the front runners here will find their way onto pit road. Jeff Gordon, who ran long on the last green flag pit cycle we had, which seems like it was ages ago at this point, but he will stay out to take the race lead. We had to do quite a few laps here under the caution as Martin and Gilliland's cars were pretty much locked together. So Gordon leads the field here with 90 laps to go. Caution is out again! Ha ha ha! This time it's for Kyle Busch, who was running back in 21st after pitting under the last caution. A solo, unassisted spin, but it's pretty remarkable here that he didn't lose the front end of that car. Again, most of the front runners elect to pit, but Casey Kane, Dale Jr., and Kevin Harvick elect to stay out. Interesting. Good start for Casey and Kevin here, but Casey will clear up for the lead with 77 laps to go. Skip ahead to 73 to go. What a save by JPM here. Edwards will move on by as a result, as will Kyle Busch, who, remember, just brought out the last caution. Honestly, great comeback here for Greg Biffle, who has worked his way back up to the 2nd position with 68 laps to go. He is cool, calm, and collected. 52 to go now, and it is an unscheduled pit stop for Marcos Ambrose. Unfortunately, he had such a good run going, but it will not end as good as it possibly could have.
Welcome back, Captain Obvious.
Casey Kane now trying to stretch this run out so he can make it on one more stop to the finish. But before he can pit, Kyle Busch is going to spin out again. It is our 13th caution of the race, and this time Kyle Busch is done. This kind of puts everybody in an interesting position here as we are right on the extreme edge of the pit window, but pretty much everybody is going to hit pit road here. Kevin Harvick says, and I quote, "My car is worse than terrible." Keep that in mind. Greg Biffle wins the race off pit road, and Jimmy Johnson, who has kind of been in and out of the top 5 all night, takes a wedge wrench with him out of the pits and will move to the tail for the restart. No way that his night could get any worse, right? And I will take phrases that have never been said before for 800, Alex. What is a great restart for Jeff Gordon? But it only lasts a lap and a half as Greg Biffle will pass Gordon with 50 laps to go. 46 to go, and now Casey Kane will move around his future teammate to get to 2nd. Maybe not surprisingly here given the last 2 updates, but Gordon will continue to slide backwards here as David Ragan and Dale Jr. go right on by. Fuel check for most of the field here inside of 50 laps to go. The reports are short. Pretty much everybody thinks they are short at this point. As the laps wind down here, though, it's kind of hard to tell who is fading and who is saving, hoping for a Hail Mary. But as we move closer and closer to the finish, one team thinks that they are good to the end here on fuel, and it is Kasey Kahne. Not a whole lot of changes throughout the field for the next 15 laps or so as Kasey Kahne tries to cut the gap to about 0.6 of a second behind race leader Greg Biffle. David Reagan and Dale Jr. are 3 seconds behind the Biff. 23 to go now. Jr. will pass David Reagan for third, while Matt Kenseth passes Denny Hamlin for fifth. David Reagan will hit fuel conserve mode here with 18 to go, and he will let his teammate Matt Kenseth go right on by. 16 to go. Kasey Kahne is going to try and push Greg Biffle harder than he wants to be pushed. Biffle is still short on fuel. He tries to pull away over the next few laps here, and I'm sure that is really helping his fuel situation. 10 to go now, and Kahne just looks like he can't even catch Greg Biffle. He's even moved up to the high side, trying to use the momentum off the top. 8 to go, and Matt Kenseth has to come in for a splash of gas. Jeff Gordon is going to pit next time by. Kasey Kahne tries to make a move for the lead with 6 laps to go, but the Biff cuts him off. Kahne makes the same move again, and just as he does, we are under caution for the 14th time, and we usher into the scene with one of the most famous on-air radio transmissions in motorsports history.
Jimmy Johnson.
Fucking kidding me.
Caution, and we apologize for Chad Knaus's language.
So the good news here is that we are going to make it to lap 400 on fuel, and we should all just... Everybody give yourselves a round of applause. We're making it to lap 400. The bad news is we're going over 400 laps here. It is the first overtime finish in the history of the Retro Racing Roundup. David Reagan and a few other drivers will pit. Reagan was running in P5, though. We get a shot of a 3-car bump draft chain of RCR cars with Kevin Harvick at the head of the line. And as they cut away from that, we see Greg Biffle is heading to the pits from the lead. That is just a killer blow for the Biff here. But that means that Dale Jr. and Kasey Kahne are on the front row for the restart. And it is at this point that all of Junior Nation rises to their feet in excitement. At this point, it's been 104 races since Michigan 2008. The last time that Dale Earnhardt Jr. went to victory lane in the NASCAR Cup Series. Tonight is going to be the night, and everybody knows it now. Junior rockets straight to the lead as Kasey Kahne is out of gas. Jeff Burton is going to spin, but of course there's no caution because Dale Jr. is leading the race. Junior is scooting away on the final lap. It's finally going to happen. And oh my God, no, you're kidding me. Not again. Where the hell did Kevin Harvick just come from? Oh my God. Kevin Harvick has won the Coca-Cola 600. And for the second time today, the National Guard car is leading in turn 4, but loses the race. Oh my God. Junior says he knew he didn't have enough gas, so he was pushing as hard as he could to try and coast it across the line. But I tell you this, if he would have just saved even just a little bit of freaking gas, he would have won the damn race. Yeah, that's whatever. It's fine. No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm not upset or anything. Go back to this restart calamity here. David Reagan, who just pit from 5th, mind you, absolutely plows through the melee here and will finish in 2nd. And Dale Earnhardt Jr., leading out of turn 4, out of gas, finishes down in 7th. Harvick says that all he did all day was just complain, and now he's going to get rewarded for it at the end of the day. That is how we close out Memorial Day 2011. Alrighty, here we go. Rapido. Racing. 7. Finish. 9. Memorability. I didn't do this beforehand. I'm trying to decide. 8. 8 memorability. Historical significance. 7.
I will not be taking any questions.
Alrighty, that is a long episode. I told you at the beginning, this is the longest script that we've ever had here on the Retro Racing Roundup. The previous record was 38. 38 pages for the longest script. This script, And I did not type out an intro or an outro this time. I'm a very script-heavy boy. And there's no intro or outro this time, even without those. Script is 71 pages long. That's a lot of pages. It's a lot of work. I'm happy to get this off, and I'm happy to get this uploaded and here for you. I hope you enjoyed it. At least I hope you enjoyed your favorite third of it. Because there is quite literally something for everybody in here. I know I'm not as well-versed in Formula 1 or IndyCar, but I'm trying. I hope I did a good job. Hope it's satisfactory. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, be sure to like the video. Share it if you would. I did do a decent amount of work on this one, and I'm pretty happy with how it's turned out, at least I think anyway, because I can't really know for sure until I publish it. But I'm happy at least that you got to see it. And I thank you very much for your support, as always, not only for the Retro Racing Roundup, but for everything that we do here on Turn 200, because we do a lot of stuff. And so I'm hoping that you're enjoying it. We will be back for the next edition of the Retro Racing Roundup, which I just realized I don't know what that is. Let's go see what that is. You're going to see my live reaction to this. And the next race for the Retro Racing Roundup is the 1992 Hooters 500. What some people call the greatest championship race of all time. So no pressure for that one to do my homework over the next 7 days on this one and get out a good video. No pressure at all. Good deal. Thank you as always, for voting. If you have a race that you haven't seen yet here on the channel and you want to, leave it down in the comments below. And again, as exemplified by this video here, it can literally be anything. It could be NASCAR, Cup, Xfinity, trucks, modifieds, Pinties, whatever, Formula 1, IndyCar, IRL, kart, champ car, whatever, IMSA, V8 supercars, Monster Jam, World of Outlaws. I don't care. I want the good stuff. Give me the good stuff in the comments, and I will shout you out in a future video. This race, none of these races were recommended by anybody, which I think is absurd. That is why I elected to take the ball and run with it here today. So hopefully you enjoyed. We hope to see you back for another edition of the Retro Racing Roundup here soon. Until we meet again, I've been Tommy Cook. Have a happy and safe Memorial Day holiday over the weekend. Travel safe, and we'll see you back here for the next one.